Hey everyone, Doug here at the Jewelry Monk Studio. Wanted to make a quick video. I get a lot of questions about casting and people wanting to know the proper way of spruing a piece, creating a tree and getting it ready to cast. I made a cast this morning and I just kind of wanted to kind of show what I did and go over it and why I did it. This was just a small tree that I did, but I had, I don't know, there's probably 15 or 20 pieces on there, small, but it was only a small can. But I put all the pieces on there in a specific way because of the way that science works, I guess. So I'm gonna kind of show you this real quick and break it down a little bit and answer a few of the questions that people have. So let's dive in. All right, so here is the tree that I just cast. And if you look, what I try to do when I cast multiple pieces is the bottom row, and you look from the very base to the start of the first row is usually about 3/4 of an inch to an inch. And I always try and put the heaviest pieces on the bottom and the lightest pieces on the top of the tree, because you figure when you pour the metal, you're pouring it this way. The first pieces to fill are the ones on the would be the top of the tree, but at the end, and then everything else kind of backfills. So as the metal is going in there, it is actually cooling down a little bit. So the casting temperature of this metal when it hits this piece versus this metal when it hits this piece is going to be a little bit different because of the cooling action as the metal is pouring into the crucible. So the heavier pieces will go on the bottom. The lightest pieces or the hardest pieces to cast will be on the top. Now these pieces here look like they're a little bit heavier, but they're actually really thin and they're kind of hard to fill. So I put those towards the top. These ones here kind of in the middle just because they have a small jump ring. So again, these ones here in the middle, they're kind of your medium pieces, and then the ones on the very top are the thinnest pieces and the hardest to fill. If you look, these pieces are real close together, and you can get them as close as you can without touching, and that's not going to be an issue. So you can see that some of these pieces are just about touching, but that's fine. And I just try and kind of categorize them to where they're close, so I can get a bunch of pieces on a tree, but also I want to be able to get in there and clip a little bit easier, so I don't want to really jam them in there. So that's kind of why they're fairly close together. Some of the pieces, if you look, there's like little beads on there. It's because there's little pits in the wax, and I just filled those in, and it's easier for me to just grind that off when I'm grinding it rather than trying to clean it up in the wax. So, but that is what the tree looks like. Again, your biggest pieces on the very bottom, your heaviest pieces by volume, and then slowly to your thinnest pieces on top, and you'll have a little bit more success. Now on this one, it was actually a vacuum cast piece. Here's the flasks that I use, and if you look at these things here, what those are straws that I use. I've also got a chamber casting machine that's got the holes, perforated flasks, but on this one it's just a small one. I didn't use it. So what I do is just take household straws, and one end, if you look, it's filled with wax, and it's probably filled to about right there. And then I'll put that into this flask, kind of, if you look where the pieces would go, I put it as close to the pieces as I can without touching. So what's happening is when you fill this with investment, and how I hook those up is I just take these old little bobby pins, put those in there, and then slide it in there, and you want to leave it a little bit higher than the top of the flask. So again, when you fill this with investment, it's not going to fill the straws because the bottoms are capped off. And what that does is when you cast, this is a chamber of air that actually helps to assist in the vacuum process. So if it didn't have that, then all of the vacuum would just come from the very top of the flasks. But when you do this, it's coming from the top, but it's also got vacuum chambers that are helping to assist in casting some of those pieces. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, reach out and ask some questions. But again, so that would kind of sit in there, and those pieces would be close to the straws but not touching. If it touches the straws, then when you pour the metal, it's actually going to go into the straw, and that will be a failed cast. So, but that's how, when I'm doing these small flasks, that's what I do. I even got some smaller flasks than this, and even on some of the bigger flasks like the 6x4s, I'll do the same thing. But I've also got a chamber casting machine. I usually use that on the bigger flasks. So hopefully that kind of helps explain a little bit. You can get the pieces as close as you want. It's not going to affect it, just as long as they're not touching. If they're touching, then they're going to join, and then you'll either have to peel them apart and do some repair, or not be able to use that piece and have to recast them. So again, this is just a small flask. It's probably 2 inches high and 2 inches wide, and there's probably 15 pieces or so in there. Yeah, so I just wanted to show that this is the same thing I use when I'm casting, 1 or 2 or 3 pieces, but on these pieces they're fairly small, so I can throw a bunch of them in there and get a quick cast. So hopefully that helps. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out in the comments. I always answer the questions. So thanks for tuning in, and take care.